Welcome back everybody. So today we're going to do a demonstration class on just doing a display of flowers in a vase, foam free basically. We get lots of questions from the students and also from the followers, you yourself watching, and you're saying, Janette, any chance of showing us just how to display flowers? So this is a container, and I picked this up in IKEA, but this is a kind of a vase container that you would pick up in any walk around shop, and again quite inexpensive. So just make sure it's scrupulously clean, and then you can top it up with as much water as you wish. Remember, the flowers are going to continuously keep drinking water, so you'll need to top this up ever so often. The other thing I always advise is adding flower food to the water, because that helps to prolong the life of your flowers. So what I'm going to use today, so what I have is, we can count the pieces as we put them in. I approximately have maybe 12 or 15 branches of eucalyptus. So if you watched any of my tutorials before, I would show you what a bunch of foliage looks like when you buy it in from the wholesalers. I have approximately half a bunch there, just to give you an idea. And what I did with the bunches was I kept the end of them clean. So just by maybe cutting off the little side shoots, you see like that the end of the stem is nice and clean, so that there's no leaves. If there was leaves on the end, I just kind of like took them off with my fingers or using the stem strippers. And again, you can see each piece. So I have 4 there, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So I have 17, but some of them you can see are quite skinny, right? So I probably would get away with a little bit less if you want to. And it depends on how full you want to make it. So as I'm placing in the foliage, if you have your notebook and pen ready, take a few little notes, and then you can say to yourself, actually I think 8 pieces was plenty, or maybe if it was me, I'd like 20 pieces. So first of all, you'll need some anchor tape, right? You could use sellotape, but sometimes I kind of find the sellotape starts to disintegrate. So just find the beginning of our anchor tape here, just cut off that piece there. And what I want to do is make a grid across the top of the vase, okay? So I'm just bringing a line, just going across here. I've come in about 2 or 3 centimeters from the very edge of the container, right? You'll see now what I mean. And I'm trying to obviously trim it back, so I haven't got big green stripes. What happens with the anchor tape, it's really, really strong. And of course it sticks to the container straight away. And if you have false nails like I have, it makes it a little bit more awkward. So again, we'll get a second piece, and again we'll bring that across. I'll try not to stick it on so I can get the trim on it there, and we'll get the trim on it here. There we go. You don't want to come down too far past the container, because it'll be hard to camouflage it. Can you see the way what I've just done there? And then I'm going to make 2 lines then going the opposite way. So again, we're kind of getting a square boxes. Do you remember as a kid playing X's and O's? Well, that's kind of what I'm creating here. It's like the little boxes there for X's and O's. As I said, you could use the sellotape, but sometimes your sellotape can be too wide. Now there is a little trick. You can always pinch the sellotape. You don't need to kind of like make it narrower. But sometimes I find when you're sticking in the material, if it's wet at all, some of the sellotape brands, you know, that way the cheaper brands especially, you find that they disintegrate. So again, I'm just putting another little piece of tape across here. Now because I've water in the container, I can't actually hold this up and let you see it, okay? But hopefully it's 2 lines kind of going down, 2 lines going across, you know, that way, and that you're kind of getting X's and O's. So I've 9 little boxes, okay? Obviously the corner boxes are probably more triangular. So are you with me? If you have any questions at all, just post them in the comments. And what I may be doing when I'm finished is I'll take a photograph of the top of the grid, and maybe I can post it in the comments below. So now we're back to our foliage. So take your foliage up in your hand, and some of this foliage is the same length, and some is a little bit longer, and some is a little bit shorter. Just be very casual about it. And if you haven't got eucalyptus, like pittosporum would be ideal, or you can mix the foliage if you wish. So first of all, I'm going to start around the edge of the box, okay? So just the boxes around the edge, and I'm going to place the pieces of greenery in. Can you see there on a slant? And it's kind of important that none of the foliage or the branches are going down through the grids. So I've 1 in that box, and then 1 in the next box. And as you can see, as I'm picking them up, some of the boxes or some of the branches are a little bit fuller, or a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. So I'm just going to bring that over just slightly to one side so you can see it, right? It's obviously easier for me to stick it in the box that's kind of nearer me. Now, watch the vase underneath. You see, that's why I didn't put the water in too far so you could see what I'm doing. As I place in the foliages, they're crisscrossing over each other. And it's a bit like when we're making hand-tied bouquets, even though we don't use this technique now to make a hand-tied bouquet. But like that, all your stems are crisscrossing, and that's what holds them in place. And this is what the grid helps, you know, that way, because if you try to do this and you haven't got the grids, you might find that they keep moving. Now I've gone around and I've filled in all the outside boxes, okay? And I still have plenty in my hand, and I just feel that one there looks a little bit skimpy and I just could do with an extra one. And that one over there, I actually missed it, so I'm going to stick an extra one in there. Do you know, that way you can go back and you can add extra ones in. Now have a look and see if there's a nice tall strong one. There's a nice tall strong one. And then stand that in the center box, okay, that's coming up in the center. And if you find that your piece wasn't strong enough, get a second piece and again go into that center box. Like, that's the great thing about it. And then after that, whatever number you have left in your hand, I have about 4 or 5 of them. Like, it's just use your own kind of discretion and say, I think I need another one in there. I think I need another one in there. And just work around and fill them in. Now for a little bit of texture, I'm going to add in another type of foliage. Now you don't have to. You can just leave it as it is, you know, that way, and you can go straight onto the flowers. I'm just going to add that piece in there because it's in my hand, right? So the next thing, now one of my stems is a little bit up out of the water, but I will top this up with more water later. I just wanted to make sure that you could see the crisscross effect with the stems. So this foliage that I have here is phoenix leaf. It's mostly sold commercially. It's probably not something that you have grown in your garden. In saying that, my dad has it grown in his garden. But the stuff that you grow here in Ireland will be very stiff and strong, very spiky, and it'd nearly take the hands off you or take the face off you if you walked into it. Where this is commercially grown, this is imported from Holland, okay? So it's much, much softer. So again, I've kind of cleaned the ends, you know, that way, I've just kind of by pulling off some of them leaves, that I have a nice clean stem. So I'm going to work around the outside again, kind of like placing them in on that sort of an angle, that I get a nice collar effect, you know, that way, with the phoenix leaf. So I'll just turn that one around to you so you can see the effect of it, right? So it is a nice one, and you could actually use it on its own. So working around the outside grids, okay, that I made with the anchor tape, I'm just going to, maybe in every box, okay, or every square that I made, but just here and there, I'm going to insert a branch of this. Now, as I said, if you haven't got phoenix leaf, just use another type of foliage that you happen to have, or stick to all the same type. If you have something grown in your garden and you're wondering would it be suitable, the best thing to do, place the word or the name or the question in the comments below, and I will go back and I will answer all the comments later on this evening, okay? So I'm working my way around, adding in a few little extra ones, and then I just kind of think maybe towards the centre, a few of these would be nice as well. And when I'm placing them towards the centre, I'm kind of placing them that way, like don't place one on top of the other, kind of place them in on an angle that it gives like a nice full effect to the arrangement. Personally, I think, even with just the foliage, I think that looks just amazing, and it's just foliage. So again, if you have a nice big garden, you know, that way, and you're a little bit short of money and you can't afford to buy flowers a certain week, just do it in all foliage. And even like for weddings, for churches, wouldn't they be amazing, you know, that way, as displays around the place? Now, if you were doing this for Valentine's Day, it's just because I'm using red roses, I'm mentioning Valentine's Day. But remember, red roses are popular all year round. They are a very romantic flower, and they would be used for anniversaries, birthdays, I love you, or as we say in the flower shops, the I'm sorry's, you know, that way, the ones that fecked up the night before and they're in trouble and they need to kind of get themselves out of a hole. So red roses are all year round, as is all colour roses. Even for Christmas, some of this could be Christmas foliage. You could have a little bit of holly or spruce or a little bit of Christmas glitter or whatever, and then you could use your red roses. But obviously other flowers will work. And if you follow me here on social media, I do have other demonstration videos using other selections of flowers. So I have all our roses cut, and what I've done is I've kept them all the same length. Now you can judge, you might decide to have yours a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. What I would advise you is get one flower, place it into the vase, judge the length of it, you know what I mean, and then cut all the rest of the flowers the same length. Now what I was saying, if it was Valentine's Day, people might want it with 6 roses or a dozen roses, do you know what I mean? But listen, if you just wanted to do this with 1 rose, it would work. One of the roses I just left a fraction longer than the rest of them, okay? And that one I'm going to place close to the centre. So I'm just kind of like prodding around here until I find the grid, and then working in through the stems. And the great thing is when you have your water coming, you know, 2/3, 3/4 up your vase, you can move that rose up a little bit or push it down a little bit. It'll still be in water, and the grid or the crossover holds it in place. So I do like the centre flower to be a little bit higher. As I place in the rest of them, I may kind of slightly adjust that. But sure, listen, this is going to be live, so you're watching as I'm actually making. So after that then, I'm going to work on an angle or a slant, you know, that way placing the flowers. I'll turn this around to you in a second, okay? So again, I'm just placing a rose in on an angle. Can you see there coming away from it? And then working my way around, I might place in a second one. Of course, not just I might, of course I am. So there we have a second one. And then as I turn it around, I'm going to place in a third one. Now it's not necessarily 3 around the number 1, slightly lower on an angle, even though it might look like that. I'm just kind of dividing up the flowers. But I'm just trying to show you as well that if you only have a minimum number, like 2, 3 or 4, what you can actually achieve. Now I'm going to work out a little bit further, so kind of working out to the outside grids, you know, that way, and again I'm going to place it. Now remember, as well as it being the grids that I made, you know, the squares with the anchor tape, it's also the crossover of the foliage is what holds the flowers in place. Now, a professional or a florist, I hope I am a professional, but what florists often do is they make a hand-type bouquet actually in their hand, and then they would insert it into this vase, you know, that way, and that's probably an easy commercial professional way of doing it. But as a lot of these videos that I post on our social media page is for people that are doing it at home, you know, that way, for pleasure and for enjoyment. You know, I mean, maybe not, doesn't have official training, and this sort of style will work for you. Now I've lost count of what number of flowers that I put in, but I'm just at this stage just turning the arrangement around, and I'm allowing my eye to tell me. So when I'm training my students here at Case Flower School, we're always talking about the cop-on spots, you know, that way. And that's not something I can actually teach you. It's where a cop-on spot is where your eye is drawn to the arrangement, and without being told 90 degrees northeast you need a flower, by looking at the arrangement yourself, you will know you need a flower. In case anyone's wondering, well, I wonder how many roses she did use. I know I started off with 10 roses to start off here. So again, just to kind of show you, I've 9 in so far because there's 1 still on the table. And eeny, meeny, miny, mo, where will I go? I think I'll go in here with the 10th rose. But you could easily make this up to a dozen roses if it was Valentine's Day. I'm doing this as more of an all year round. But if it was Valentine's Day and you'd like to have the dozen roses, you know, that way. And the great thing now about the grid is, and the crisscross over, is that you can move the flowers up or down a little bit more. Do you remember I was explaining that to you with the grid? And it's just a matter of like topping up the vase with more water so that all our flowers are actually in water. And again, you can move them around slightly. So that, I'm just going to move that one just down a slight little bit more. So there is our 10 roses displayed in a vase. You know what I mean, depending on the price of the flowers at the moment, roses are quite expensive, you know, that way. But we could use other flowers. What if that was 10 large carnations? You know, that way the foliage actually makes it. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you have any questions at all, especially if you want to learn how to do a proper professional hand-tied bouquet, why don't you drop us an email here to the school, info@flowerschoolireland.com. We'd really appreciate a little bit of interaction. That would mean by commenting underneath, giving us a thumbs up, telling us what you think about the arrangement, a little question. And you know what we would really appreciate? Is there any chance of you click and share and sharing this video, maybe in groups that you're in, other flowery groups that you're in, or even on your own personal page? We'd really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Janette and I'm from Case Flower School, and thank you for watching.